Hey everybody, welcome back to One Seed, One World. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys some updates on what's been going on around the homestead here. After a very cold Christmas weekend where Christmas Eve day, it was 3 degrees Fahrenheit in the morning with a negative 16-degree wind chill. And I thought I was gonna die when I came out here to let the chickens out and take care of them. It was so cold it hurt to breathe. Now then, New Year's weekend, it was about 60 degrees, and it's about 60 degrees out here today, although it's kind of rainy and wet. Most of the rain has passed us by, and so I thought I'd come out and get a little bit of video and give you guys some updates. So I was kind of worried about the chickens in that really cold weather, but they all seem to do fine. I kept the little ones in during the coldest day, which was Christmas Eve day. That pretty much stayed single digits the whole time. So I kept them in their coop because they don't tend to be smart enough to kind of go in on their own. Whereas the big girls, I let them out and they would go in and out as they wanted to. We also served them a hot breakfast, so that all went well. And then the next day I let them out again. The next day was only in the teens, but they seemed to do fine. And then, you know, everything's back to normal now. So we survived the super cold Christmas weekend and then had a warm New Year's weekend. And I hope that you guys had a nice holiday weekend, whatever holidays you may or may not celebrate. And I hope that you are having a safe and happy New Year now that we're just a couple days into the new year. So let's take a look at a couple of things that's been going on a little bit. So over here, we've got the little secondary hive. I've got it strapped or taped up with that rigid foam board insulation to kind of help keep it warm throughout the winter. I don't know if these guys will survive over the winter just because this was the secondary that came off that swarm. They weren't as strong by the end of the summer. So I did check on them a couple weeks ago before the real cold weather hit, and I put in a, I guess it's called a pollen cake. It's kind of like this cakey thing that's got pollen and all kinds of other nutrients and stuff in it that's good for them. And I put that in there as well as some mite control cake things. So we'll see how they do. They did have honey in there, but not a whole lot, and that's why I put the pollen cake in. Get on the camera here. So this is the big Layens hive. I'm much less worried about this hive. This was a much stronger hive, and this hive was built already insulated, so I didn't put any extra strapping on that. I also added the mite control strip cake things, which smell awful, by the way, as well as a pollen cake in here, although when I checked it about a week after putting it in, they hadn't even touched it yet because they had a lot more honey stores in here that we left for them. So hopefully I'm hoping that this hive does okay over the winter. We'll see how it goes. And I'll check them again probably in another week or so. I try not to disturb them too much, you know, keep all their heat in there because bees don't hibernate. You know, they're still moving around and stuff in there, and they tend to stay in there, and they use their wings and whatnot to keep the hive warm. So they don't, you know, come out during the winter, but they kind of stay in there and just eat and bzz a lot to keep things warm, to keep the queen warm and keep everything going. So I'm hoping between their honey stores along with that additional pollen cake that I put in there, and I'll keep checking that to see if they eat on it, and if they do, then I'll replace it as necessary. So I got my hoop fixed. This was the one that collapsed with the loofah that I did the video on, I don't know, like a month ago. So I did get that all propped up, and I got all the old loofahs cleaned off of it. And remember, I was saying in that video that we only got like 2 loofah because, you know, it was kind of behind, and then it got wet and the thing collapsed and they didn't dry out properly. While I was cleaning up, I did find some that were starting to dry and seemed like they were in pretty decent shape. So I kind of pulled those all out of there and put them in the greenhouse. And I think we're going to get a few more loofah than I thought. So my greenhouse is a complete mess right now. I've got insulation in here, tools, random things. It's kind of been a staging ground, storing area. drying area, and I have a lot of work to clean up in here as I don't know, at some point I have to get in here and get things cleaned up before spring. But I've got all these loofahs. They're a little, some of them are slightly damp right now because it's been really rainy and very humid in the greenhouse. Well, it wasn't rainy in the greenhouse. It's been rainy outside, but very humid in the greenhouse. But they're drying out. You can hear the seeds shaking in there. I've got about, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 here. This one I already peeled. You can see because I was checking on this one. But I think now what I'm going to do is take these inside to finish their drying just so they can kind of finish out a little bit. I got this one back here did the worst, and it's still kind of damp, but it's not heavy anymore. A couple of these were kind of heavy from the moisture inside, so it has dried out quite a bit, but other ones are very light, airy, and dry. So can't hear the seeds in some of them, so that one's doing pretty good. Anyway, with the 2 already harvested, that means that we ended up with 13 loofah, as long as these all came out okay. So that I'm much more pleased with. We should have had a ton, I mean, there was a ton more loofah on there. We should have got a lot more, but this just wasn't the best season for it. But the fact that we went from 2 to maybe 13 is a pretty good uptick in my point of view. And then I still have all this dried out flax in here that I haven't got to yet. And that will have to be another future episode when I actually, this has been dried out for a while. I just haven't got to processing yet. So we'll get to that eventually. But that's kind of like the outside stuff. I have done some cleanup of all my front beds, been cleaned out for winter. I have not gotten to my back beds yet, so they are quite a bit of a mess. But I need to get to those, and hopefully the weather will hold out enough for me to be comfortable enough to come out and do finish up some weeding and clean them out. As I mentioned on a previous video, if it's below 50 degrees, I really don't like to be outside. And I think after tomorrow, which is supposed to rain again tomorrow, you know, the temperature is supposed to drop from like the 60s to down into the low 40s. For showing, the extended forecast shows low 40s during the day all the way up through like the 17th of December was the farthest the forecast went, or December. 17th of January, which is really a pretty mild January, but I'd much rather be inside for that kind of stuff. 40 degrees. I know some of you, especially those of you who live in the north, that's probably t-shirt weather for you, but here in Western Maryland, you know, I mean, we do get cold, but I don't like it. So when it gets below 50, I just stay indoors for the most part, whenever I can. So just to show you, this is the ratty garden here behind me, the back garden that I haven't cleaned out yet. These hoops that have the old bean vines on them and stuff. The majority of the beans have been harvested, and so we've gotten those scarlet runner beans out here, but I haven't cleaned any of this out yet, and I need to get to that. But I just kind of want to show you, you know, in the wintertime, everything looks kind of ugly, and it's not as pretty as all the pictures that and video that I show you, you know, during the spring and summer when everything is growing and looking nice. But I do have some things that I am growing inside, most of which have been doing pretty well. So let's go take a look inside and I'll show you what's going on in there. Oh, before we go inside, one other thing I wanted to mention was, since it's been so warm these last couple of days, I did get out and get some shingles done on the second chicken coop that I'm building. And I'll throw up a couple pictures here to show you what I've got done so far. I still have to do trim and staining in the spring or early summer whenever we get some dry spells where I can get out there and stain them. But at least I've got probably 2/3 of the shingles on, but now I'm out of pallets. So I'm gonna have to go find me some more free pallets that I can cut down to do the rest of the shingles on the chicken coop. But you know, it was a nice day out here yesterday afternoon, out working with the chickens. Of course, the little ones, you know, they're always all up with me when I'm working. Had Emma up on my shoulder, Annabelle sitting on my boot, Doug's crowing the whole time. And so that you know, it takes a little bit longer when you're trying to make sure that you don't drop anything on a little Bantam chicken. But it was a good time, and I got some work done. Okay, so down in the basement, I've started a couple of different growing experiments for the winter. I've got a couple of tomato plants that Dr. Weechee Yellow that are doing quite nicely so far. I'm hoping to actually grow some tomatoes inside this year, although with the indeterminate variety, it might get a little crazy, so I might have to do some pruning, and we'll see how they do. But so far they look very strong and they're doing very well. I'm gonna actually have to transplant them soon. I planted a couple of pepper seeds, poblanos, but they have not sprouted, and I think because it's too cool down here, and I think I mentioned that in a previous video for them to sprout, because peppers really like their soil temperature when you plant seeds to be probably like around 80 degrees, and we're not getting that down here. I think it gets about 75 tops, 73 more likely in the basement, even in the greenhouse. My potato sprouts are going crazy. They're getting very leggy because I don't think I have enough light down here. And so I'm gonna have to transplant some of those soon too to try to grow some potatoes inside. I think I'm gonna put them in bags. And then I got some cilantro that's sprouted, one basil plant that's trying to sprout. And then just a few days ago, I planted turnips and radishes that I'm trying to grow just in like the little 4-inch containers, and I'm only growing enough, if they do well, to maybe make like one small bag, like 20 radishes and 20 turnips. So with the turnips especially, they'll be small turnips. If they turn out, they will the turnips will just probably be enough for one meal, but I just wanted to see if I could do it inside and see how they turn out. The one thing I'm running into already, they sprouted so fast. Within like 4 days, they'd already popped up through the soil, and I kind of like left them for a day or so. So now like their greens are like real tall and skinny and leggy. So I try to prop them up a little bit closer to the light just this morning, but we'll see what happens with those, because I don't think there's quite enough artificial light to give them good strength. But I don't know, they popped up really fast. They're doing really well in the potting soil, and we'll see what goes on with those. And then my last experiment is growing mushrooms. I've started a bag with lion's mane mushroom, and it hasn't been in there long enough to do anything. It takes a few weeks for everything to kind of get going. And then I've got 2 bags of golden oyster mushrooms, but they're still part of the grain spawn with all kind of the mycelium and stuff that's kind of filled out through the bag. And I've got to get those into buckets. I'm going to try to grow them in buckets. And so I'm going to do a separate episode on growing oyster mushrooms in buckets inside. And then we'll see how it turns out. But that will probably be a few weeks from now before that video comes out, because it does take probably a good 5 or 6 weeks for everything to kind of get going, but I'll have the whole process that I do on that video. And so that's kind of been everything that's been going on here. Some indoor growing experiments. I should mention also that Mitzi's got all kinds of stuff growing in her office, and a lot of her plants are doing amazing. She even planted cantaloupe in there, which I think it's going to be a problem. I don't think that's going to work, because you need the pollinators unless she tries to hand pollinate it. Plus, the vines can get up to 40 feet long, which is not going to work in her office. But she has got also all kinds of herbs. She's got some tomato plants growing up there. I think she's got some peppers. I don't remember what herbs she has. I know she's got some cilantro, but some other stuff, maybe some horehound, marshmallow, that kind of stuff I think she has going on. She has some moringa plants started, and so she's got all that going on. And then also we have a new kitten that she decided that she had to have. So this is Tink, and Tink right now mainly lives in Mitzi's office while she's working. She does come out at night, but Oliver, one of our Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, the male, the younger one, he's obsessed with well, he's obsessed with hunting, but he's also just obsessed with getting to this kitten. And we've done some introductions through a gate, and he just gets so bent over this kitten, and he's too rough. Like, we're afraid that because she's so tiny that he will hurt her. I mean, he wants to lick her to death just like he does our other cat, and with our older dog Abby, he just likes licking them. But with her, he's nipped her. When we even tried to introduce her through the gate to him, he got a little nippy. Like, he was just so excited. He wasn't like aggressive, mean. He's just so excited about this cat. He starts licking, and then he nipped at her a couple times, and so that's not cool. So we're gonna have to work that out. It's gonna take a while, I think, before they all get introduced, because he does have that hunter mentality, and he's, you know, killed mice, baby rabbits, and all kinds of stuff over the years that we've had him. You know, he's 6.5 years old, almost 7. By now, I think he should be calming down a little bit, but he hasn't showed too many signs of slowing down. So it's going to take a little while to get Tink and Oliver, I think, acclimated to one another. But, you know, we'll see how it goes. So that's all the updates here at our little homestead, between some of the outdoor projects, the weather, the bees, the chickens. I got some woodworking stuff I'm trying to do, and maybe I'll have some future videos on that if you guys are interested in that. I know most of what I do here on this channel is gardening, but you know, I try to, you know, include some of the other projects and crafts and stuff that we're doing. I've been building some planter boxes, and I'll show you a picture of what I did this fall, but I want to build a bunch more of those to sell. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But that's been our fall and early winter so far, but I'm getting excited about the new growing season. You know, I've already got stuff growing down here in the basement, but getting stuff ready for the garden outside is not that far away. You know, when you're starting plants indoors or in a greenhouse, you know, some of that stuff, if you've seen my earlier videos, even here in Zone 6B, you know, you can start some stuff in February and March. And if you want to get really excited, I guess you could start stuff in January, depending on, you know, how long you want to maintain it, or the type of plant that you're growing that has a longer growing season that might need more time to kind of get to where it needs to be to take it outside. But we're getting close, you know, and I got some seeds I need to order here soon, and maybe you guys are already ordering your seeds. But I hope that you all are having a fantastic new year. Here we are already in 2023. Before you know it, we're going to be in the middle of spring and summer, and it's going to be awesome. But whatever's going on in your neck of the woods, I hope it's going fantastic for you, and that you're just having a great time on your homestead, or making plans for you know, a homestead, or even just growing in your apartment, whatever it is that you're doing. You know, you can do things in small spaces or large spaces, whether you're new or a long-time gardener, homesteader. You know, there's always new things that you can learn, pick up, and get excited about to do new things. So thanks for hanging out with me again today, and I hope that you will come back and hang out with me again soon here on the homestead, and we will have plenty more content here for 2023. And if you have some suggestions of some things that you would like to see, let me know, and I'll see if I can maybe get them incorporated into, you know, our videos and stuff that I'm doing. But we will see you again soon. Have a great day. Namaste.